sun is shining, the music's calming on days like today. Ah! What the? Who threw? Ah!
It's like magic. Gonna feel it like a fire. Gonna feel it like I never give up on. Gonna feel it like I never give up on you. It's like magic. I got you feeling like a fire. I got you feeling like I never give up on. Got you feeling like I never give up on. Magic, 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 magic.
I never get a vacation. I'm MangaKamen, so enter Scott Falco, an animator and video game commentator who you guys may be more familiar with the series on Overwatch with a side of salt. And frankly, he does some decent work from what I'm told, but I didn't have any interest in the Overwatch content. And no, not because of the game, but rather the oversaturation of it being a bit too much for me. But when he put a video out on Pokemon, I figured this would be a good step for me to see his work and get invested into it. Ah, who am I kidding? You already know what's happening. Also, as a side note, I do realize that his series is supposed to have more hyperbole than normal, but at the same time, hyperbole can only get you so far, and it's not an excuse for the points that we'll see.
Pokemon's been around a long time. The premise has always been pretty straightforward. Wander around a world inhabited by monsters and use and abuse them for your own personal gain and glory. Nice, wholesome fun. But with a game that's been around for so long, surely you'd think there'd be a lot of changes to the series. It wouldn't just be the same game with a fresh coat of paint like so many games do for their sequels and prequels and reboots. Surely they'd change enough of it to make it feel fresh and fun, right? Right?
Well, they kinda do. I mean, this is kind of ignoring the whole new mechanics such as abilities, held items, double battles, triple battles, rotation battles, so I wouldn't say they're adding a fresh new coat of paint every generation. However, I know you're not talking about just that. So, yes, the main series of the games do have a formula that isn't all that different from the incarnation on the surface level. The Pokemon Company has done a lot more than just the standard of video gaming. They've done dungeon crawlers, puzzle games, fighting games, trading card games, and a couple of mobile games. I guess those just don't count apparently.
You just give him one of these.
Nano Machine, son!
However, with Pokemon, it's almost a fleeting fancy. Yeah, tons of us still love Pokemon. It feeds our nostalgia. But when you think of it, every Pokemon game is just a glorified expansion pack. Sure, Mario games get called out for being samey, but they still offer large variety, even in their mainline games. Mario 64 plays insanely different than Galaxy, but at the end of the day, they both still feel like a Mario. They run, jump, and collect stars. The unique gravity of both games just makes them feel different. But Pokemon doesn't really have that twist, no unique spins. The game is always just these turn-based battles.
Brilliant!
Now before you get on my case and say that this is a side series game, he does bring up the Mario series as a whole, which while yes, the main series of games for Pokemon, as I said, are strictly RPGs, that is ignoring a whole other side of the Pokemon series. And looking at the other games outside the main series, there are well over 30 titles that are not in the same base format as the core series. And that's the big issue I have with this video. Pokemon does have variety. Sure, the formula in the core series is pretty much the same for about 20 years, with a lot of major tweaks going on, but Scott outright ignores all the other games that have the Pokemon title on them. And as I've seen the comments of his video of people brought up in this point, whether or not the other games in this series that don't follow the RPG line are good or not, that's a moot point. The fact that the Pokemon Company has gone outside the original Pokemon formula still stands.
With the most unique thing being a new type. Not to mention with their trailers nowadays, they literally spoil about 80% of the new rosters, so you don't even get to have fun discovering them, which with copy-paste games needs to be there. There's also all sorts of dumb rules that don't make any sense even for the in-game canon.
Alright, while I said that Scott has a good bit of footage, the fact that you're showing Shadow Mewtwo, who's only available in Pokken Tournament, a fighting game, is weird here. Why put this here after you just got done saying that the games never divert from the original formula, then put a scene of an official fighting game? This undermines your point and shows your audience that you're willfully ignorant of the other games. Now, I wouldn't make this much of an issue if Scott had simply said the core Pokemon games, but he never said that and referred to the entirety of the franchise.
Put that fucking Litten back in its ball. It's got no business here.
Wait, but you just called your friend.
Yeah, because we're wild, cut from the same cloth. I've known this guy my whole life. Where'd you get that charge bug, huh? Same place you got that Litten?
Look, man, should I just... No. I got this. Look, if you're gonna play with 2, I'm gonna do the same. It's just like a duo battle.
No, it's not, because duo battles have trainers. This fight just had a bunch of pussies.
I just want to finish this fight fast and get the experience.
Well, good luck, because I ain't gonna take my turn till that little bitch goes back out of the battlefield. Huh? What do you think of that? Whoop. Whoop. Nope. No running. It ain't your turn. Still Meowth's turn. Maybe I'll call for more help, who fucking knows?
Look, I want to say that the animation here is pretty good. I mean, sure, I could nitpick and say that the mouth movements of the Meowth was a little off, but that's just a nitpick on the presentation. But my real issue here is that the joke drags on. We get it, SOS battles don't make sense. And you can consider this my own subjectivity, comedy is blah blah blah, but the joke lasts for over a minute, and it doesn't make sense since frankly you can't even call out another Pokemon during SOS and the only one capable of stalling in battle is the player themselves. I don't know, the joke doesn't make sense to me as a Pokemon player. Seriously, the joke has been made pretty much by everyone, and you wanna know how you could have actually backed up your point? Since that in previous games, namely Generation 5, when you were attacked by 2 Pokemon at once, you could use 2 Pokemon against the 2 wild Pokemon. And you don't even have to animate it, just look up video footage of that happening on YouTube.
That's Pokemon at its core, a turn-based RPG, which of course isn't bad, but it is monotonous. The games do a nice job of adding a few fun features that they'll toss out the next game though. Like, for real, why can't my Pokemon follow me around anymore? Especially now! They have the assets for every Pokemon.
They have the assets? Well, let me say this. Considering, one, that in the more recent games we've seen Pokemon be at their regular sizes, that would cause an issue with the gameplay. If you had huge Pokemon following you around, like say a Steelix, there's a chance that they'll phase through the backgrounds if you go into more enclosed spaces, or they'll block the view of the character. And since there's a lot of overview shots when you enter in a new area and that get annoying, and 2, the fact that just because they have the assets doesn't mean they'd be able to program movement into the game for almost 800 Pokemon. Just imagine the amount of data and space and coding it would take to do that. And the games themselves would have to have a lot more storage space for them, and this is a handheld game, you know. And 3, technically you can ride on Pokemon. While it's not the exact same concept, the fact that you can interact and ride on some Pokemon is actually a pretty cool concept.
Pokemon does try to differ, but not enough. It still tastes like the same game. I mean, if I eat a cheesecake and I love it, then wow, I know I love cheesecake. But if you give me another cheesecake that's prepared the same as the first with just a few chocolate shavings on it, it'll be like, alright, I mean, that's still tasty, but, and then boom! Third piece, and I'm kind of full of cheesecake at this point. This one's the same as the first 2, but with strawberry on top? Well, dang, I mean, this is nice, but where's the chocolate? You can't have that. Why not? You clearly have the stuff to make it. Because fuck you, that's why. Here's your bill. And even though you essentially ate the same dessert, each one was a little more expensive than the last.
Alright, a few things wrong with this analogy. 1, you're ignoring the pie menu here. Seriously, if you didn't want to keep eating cheesecake, then why go with the cheesecake special? And by that, once again, you're ignoring the other options that the Pokemon company has put out there. And you've shown that you know about them, so the only one whose fault for ignoring the different games is you, Scott. Secondly, inflated price? No! Pokemon Sun and Moon, at least in the United States, cost around $40, which is actually the standard for the new games. And in fact, I'll provide a link that shows the standard price for the Oros was $40. The same for Generation 5. Granted, I'm using GameStop, and GameStop sucks, but they don't usually reach around the $50 range, save for a couple of older games, which are hard to find. Look, this could all be an oversight on Scott's part, but frankly, if your visuals are to go by along with your words, you seem to think that each new game tacks on more cost than previous one. That's wrong, and kinda shows that you not knowing what you're talking about in an attempt to make the games look bad.
I'm being strangled by the man in the mirror. Ah!
On top of that, even though they try to change it up, you essentially still have gyms. Totem Pokemon fights are alright, but they don't really provide a challenge, and most of the trials essentially boil down to facing the NPC trainers in the gyms from previous games. There were puzzles and minigames in other gyms. I don't know why they thought this was different.
Well, to be fair, they do add quite a bit of changes. For Kiwale's channel, you have to identify changes in the dancing routines. For Mallow's trial, you have to use the searching ride Pokemon ability to find ingredients. And for Acerola's, you have to go ghost hunting with your camera. It's not standard fare with the gyms, and while I will agree they could have done more, it's still quite a bit different than what the Pokemon games normally do.
For a game that's trying to be new, what's to stop it from swapping up some of the dumb formula like these big bad gym leaders only using 2 or 3 Pokemon of the same type, and then having them act surprised when a literal 11-year-old beats them in battle? What's to stop them from having more fights like Red or Blue? Most of the rivals nowadays are just dumb. They're just dumb. Look at it, he's dumb. Ugh. Oh.
Wait, what? We went from complaining about the gym leaders and the island challenges to talking about the rivals? Wait, what? And Wally's a dumb rival? What are you even talking about? Are you talking about personality? Are you talking about their teams? What are you talking about the design? Scott, what do you mean? See, it's this kind of thing that causes backlash. People not explaining. And I love how you're ignoring Gladiator. Which people have debated that Gladiator is a callback to older rivals like Silver and Blue. And yes, Gladiator is considered to be a rival in Sun and Moon. Bulbapedia, thank you very much.
I have played Sun and Moon, and I was having fun, but I barely invested time into it. And I was excited for the game too, but while I was playing, I forgot to save one day and I dropped my 3DS and the cartridge popped out. I had lost 2 hours of work, and honestly, I have not been able to bring myself back to playing it. Why? Because I thought about it. I thought, I don't want to do this again. But it wasn't like another game where if you lose, you'll redo it because it's fresh. Even though I hadn't beaten Sun, I feel like I had. Because I knew I had. I knew...
One moment, please.
Not okay, not okay!
I will never understand why people say this. You did not finish the game, and you expect to be taken seriously on this? Look, I get that he says that in the segment after this he felt like he had already beaten the game and could predict what would happen, but when you're going on about talking about the games and try to reflect the entirety of the whole series on that, I know it's an assumption, but Scott's making an assumption on the game as well, and with his vagueness, it's hard to tell how things are going and what he's getting at here.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. Wants to get my giblets.
But you can't have them!
Some of the changes just irked me. Like, why is Pikachu the only Pokemon that has voice lines? I get that he's the mascot, and it's not horrible, it's just annoying. Imagine if you were playing Skyrim or something and you had a run-in with a bear early on. It tosses you a wink and says something like, "Oh, what's up, it's me, the Skyrim bear. Oh, I'm the mascot of Skyrim."
Well, that was cringy as all hell, but seriously, Pikachu's call only starts in the beginning of the battle, when it's called out and when it faints. It's not like you're subjected to it throughout the entire battle, which is what I got from your little skit of yours.
Sure, at first you think it's cute, but as you progress, this bear keeps showing up no matter how hard you try to avoid him, and he's always just saying something stupid and out of place. Like the anime voice for Pikachu is cute at first, but it really just stands out from the other Pokemon.
Then don't use Pikachu! Seriously, you've stated in the segment that I skipped that you have your main battle use the EXP share to grow your Pokemon, so just have Pikachu in the back slots until you get it to a level you want to evolve it and then use a Thunderstone. And while yes, Hao does have a Pikachu in some of his battles, once again it's not spouting off one-liners throughout the entirety of the battle, and he does eventually evolve into a Raichu. Even then, Wild Pikachu only appear in 2 places in the entire game, and both of those require SOS battling. See, this is why you finish the game, or take a few minutes to look up what you're saying. You don't need to stuff your own foot in your mouth.
Anyway, like I said, the games don't need an immense overhaul, but that doesn't mean they couldn't stand to use one. Not something super drastic, but maybe even basic like action commands a la Mario and Luigi. Pokemon sort of does this now with the Pokemon being able to dodge or do more based on affection, but what if instead of luck or affection, they were tied to action commands? Nothing overly complex, but maybe you can time a button press to take less damage or even dodge if your stats are high enough.
So, you don't want overhaul, but you want to completely overhaul the battle system.
Brilliant!
And before you say that's not what he said...
Just something a little extra to keep battles a bit more involved. I mean, whenever I watch the Pokemon anime and they're like, "Oh, fucking dodge that thing," I want to do that. I want I want that to happen. Or for a bigger change, take Ni no Kuni. In this game, you collect monsters and fight in a 3D environment, so what's to stop Pokemon from doing the same thing? To that extent too, maybe adopt a Tales of style, where each directional special is just one of your Pokemon moves.
Don't need an immense overhaul, but that doesn't mean they couldn't stand to use one. Not something super drastic.
Sure, if you go on those routes, it'd be more of a spin-off or a departure, but maybe that's what Pokemon needs. I mean, look at the popularity of Pokemon Go, and that's barely Pokemon at all, minus the catching.
They did that! Seriously, they've gone off route on the strict turn-based RPG and made spin-offs that are different things.
Granted, as a business, which is all that really matters now, it works. By the time old fans of the series like myself get tired of the games, you have a new, younger generation playing their first one and not knowing what the previous ones had. Pokemon is a strong brand, and if you can make a Pokemon Tekken game, I think it's safe to say that you could try for a more complex 3D Pokemon. The Pokemon Company essentially knows something's wrong, which is why these cash-ins keep coming out.
Excuse me? Cash-ins? Are you referring to the 3 games on the eShop that are only $6 at best each? I mean, if they re-released every Pokemon game, then I could see your point, but I fail to see how these are just cash-ins in and of themselves. Also, I love how you acknowledge that there are outside games like Pokken and Go. It really proves that you're willfully ignoring the spin-offs just so you can have your salt. Tasty!
Not to mention they continuously shut down Pokemon ROM hacks or fan games because they do bring the new and the fresh that Pokemon could use. Even simple things of making it fun online or having capable gym leaders and stuff. If these were left out, it would cause people to realize that Pokemon could be more and make them less likely to buy games.
Well, that's kind of an assumption on your end there, Scott. I mean, Nintendo as a whole is kind of a mess when it comes to their intellectual properties. Hell, need I bring up the fiasco of people losing their AdSense when they're talking about Nintendo products? Not to mention when the whole Pokemon games were being made, I remember there being a Metroid fan game that got the same thing. So saying it's just the Pokemon Company is kind of misreading the situation. And while I do admit it's a bit much to cancel the fan games, Nintendo do have legal rights to do so, especially if the assets that are used in the fan games were originally made by Nintendo. Once again, I don't agree with what Nintendo does with fan games, but to blatantly say it's all because they can prove actual games to be inferior is ignoring the legal ramifications behind the matter.
But with current generations, all you need is some shiny visuals with a cherry on top and they'll gulp it down. Why can't Pokemon go the route of Zelda or Final Fantasy and make a big departure while still keeping what makes Pokemon, Pokemon? Oh, wait, I know why. Because that'd mean that they'd have to try.
Well, screw you too, Scott. Seriously, that will be my only insult towards you, but wow! How pretentious can he be? And before people point out he was making a joke, yeah, sure, right. I get that he was going for a joke, but he kept the same tone for this for the previous parts of his video, and frankly, you already brought up Pokken and Go, so yeah, you're kind of being a bit out there, man. Seriously, you act like one of the most entitled gamers that I've ever heard. Would it be nice to have a core game of Pokemon to be different? I wouldn't disagree with that, but to say that the game makers would have to put actual effort into the games, I feel as though I'm watching someone who doesn't understand what game development is at all.
Which is the perfect segue into my latest announcement. Instead of editing and animating videos myself, I'll just upload giant clips of me and my friends playing Overwatch with zero editing involved. Enjoy. I'm not actually gonna do that. I have like some small semblance of artistic integrity.
Stretch comparisons! Comparing Pokemon games to gameplay commentaries, making games with countless assets, features, and working with code to a video that has become the laziest form of video making on this YouTube website. And with that, the video ends. And what can I say? I've seen willful ignorance before, but I had a lot of people recommend me to this channel, and when I finally got my first impression of this guy...
Oh, wait, I know why. Because that'd mean that they'd have to try.
He has good visuals and presentation for the most part, but his points come off as ignorant, and I get it. The Side of Salt series, from what I'm told, is to be more comedic and hyperbolic. But frankly, this video had a lot of lazy points and contradictions as well. I don't know what it is with the trend of people I cover, but I honestly didn't get a Pokemon fan vibe from this guy despite what he says. The fact that he ignores over 30 games that do change up the formula, even though they're side games, Scott himself said that'd be perfectly fine.
To be more of a spin-off or a departure, but but maybe that's what Pokemon needs.
Look, this came off as a real bad first impression with Scott's work, but you know what they say, the most important impression is the first one, and frankly, if the rest of his videos are like this, then I have no interest in watching the rest of his content. But that's just me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm MangaKamen, and remember to examine your fandom.
From story to solar, we're running all over. We travel the speed of light and beyond. Our future is loading, the doorway is showing what we want. When you're in the freight, you can't be guessing about. No matter what remains, all of the circuitry's connecting where we route. It hooks us up to break